Got a submission here from Ayougo, who has been tuning and uploading several examples. Ayougo says that the feel of the quad is perfect. Great. So I'm not going to give you any tuning advice for this one, because if it feels perfect, then that's all that matters. If you like how it flies, then don't look at the traces and go, I like how it flies, but these traces look terrible. No, go, I like how it flies, so let's see what a good trace looks like. Okay. Now, of course, it's always a matter of personal feel. Some people like a little bit softer. Some people like a little bit harder copter. But, you know, let's take a look at what we got here. So you say roll and pitch are near perfect. It would be, by the way, it would be, I wish we had some flight video, because Blackbox logs by themselves are not always the most informative. But let's take a look at what we got here. We definitely have some activity here in the P term. The D term does not look super excessive relative to the P term. You can see that the D term in magnitude is usually equal to or usually less than maybe 2/3 or half the magnitude of the P term. So if anything, D gain may be a little low here, perhaps. But if you like how it flies, that's all that really matters. Here we can see that during some maneuvers, P term does get very active. And in fact, here we've got some classic P term oscillation. We're going to high throttle, so that makes sense. Nothing abnormal about that. Again, surging the throttle high. P term is oscillating. I'll bet we can't even see that. Well, there's a little, you can see it a little bit in the gyro. Maybe you see it a little bit. And the motors definitely are moving. So, but hey, look, you go to full throttle. What do you expect, right? Now we drop here. And we do drop and catch. And now we're turning. So here we've got, boy, it got super active here. We can see the I term reset right here. You see as you go into this turn, this is a roll, probably not a turn. The I term starts to get off here and then zoop, resets to 0. This must be, did you give us a log? No. This must be one of the new things that Boris is doing with the I term, where the I term stays at 0 during extreme acro moves. That must be what we're seeing here. I term zeroes out. Presumably you're not using RC smoothing, and that's what we're seeing here. So this activity here I would attribute to the rapid movements of the stick and not necessarily consider to be a tuning problem. Here the I term is back in the action as the stick goes back to center. That's got to be the new thing in beta flight, where when the stick gets far enough off, the I term goes to 0. Very interesting. And now the throttle comes up. The throttle was dropped. Throttle comes up. So here we've got what must be some prop wash. And it's hard to judge that too much without video, but we could probably say that that's just aggressive flying with some prop wash. Not a big deal. And here we see the P term being active, but not oscillating. Just moving around, not really oscillating. Yeah. You know, I've recently, and here we've got some pretty aggressive P term movements. Again, it's from a time where you've just dropped the throttle and now you've raised it, so perhaps it's prop wash oscillation. So, yeah, I've been trying to tune my copter up, and I think in my tuning, got into a mode where I was a little bit too focused on clean traces and not enough focused on flight feel. And when I started focusing more on flight feel, I raised my P gains, and I found that the traces looked a little dirtier than I was comfortable with at first, but the copter was unequivocally flying better. So definitely the fact that we see some noisy traces here doesn't necessarily mean that we've got a bad flying copter. And if you like it, again, that's all that matters. We're definitely seeing a lot of activity in the P term, but if we set aside these extreme examples where you're jerking the sticks around, the P term on roll is not like hyperactive, and the D term seems relatively well behaved relative to the P term. So, yeah, nothing jumps out as problematic necessarily here if you're happy with how it's flying. There's nothing like huge oscillations on the P term that make me go, no, this is bad. Now what do we see on pitch? Now on pitch we can expect to see probably somewhat less activity. We do see that the D term here is less active. That's probably due to a lower D gain. The P term is pretty active. We don't see as many oscillations on the pitch axis, and that's pretty normal because the pitch axis is more damped. Here we've got something going pretty active. Could be prop wash. And if we look for a high throttle scenario, well, I don't see oscillations. Something's going a little twitchy there, but it's not oscillations. I do notice, though, from here that your motors are often pretty active. Maybe that is something to do with, if you're running the newest Betaflight, something to do with the 2 kilohertz mode or the changes to the filtering. If we do look at your motors, though, you got a lot of this twitching in the motors that may be from lack of RC smoothing or whatever. It certainly does seem like you're probably losing more energy to heat and losing some efficiency and smoothness in your motors, and that's just a question that you have to make here. See, now this is pretty smooth looking, and the motors are not flipping out when you're at low throttle here. That's just something that you have to decide upon personally where you want that to be. If you're going to fly the copter hard, you may have a little bit rough sounding motors with a little more aggressive PIDs. I might like to see this a little smoother, though, if it were my copter. So here on pitch, I definitely feel like there's a complaint to be made here that your P term appears. Now, the pitch P term is often more active and often has a lot of back and forth motion because there's usually more noise on the yaw axis than the pitch and roll axis. But my gut feeling is that this is an excessive amount of oscillation on pitch or on yaw here, and that the yaw P gain could stand to come down. This is probably where a lot of your twitching motors are coming from now that I see it as well. That's just so much high frequency noise here that I would want to bring down pitch P. You might even bring up pitch D perhaps to help sharpen it up, but it's so active, it's hard to judge. Yeah, boy, oh, look at that. That's not good. See how thick that line is there when you're doing these high frequency stuff? Yeah, it's your yaw axis. Your pitch and your roll axis actually look really good. Your motors are flipping out because of your yaw axis. Yeah, I agree with you that your yaw axis is the one that needs tuning, and the first thing I would do is reduce P. When you're in these parts of your trace or of your capture or of your flight, your yaw, your noise level doesn't look too bad. The line is not very thick, but especially as you go to high throttle, it just flips out. So I would go back to the beginning with this. On the yaw axis, take D down to like 5, and then take P, start working P down, I think, because I think it's high. But start by taking D down to like 5 and see how it flies and see what you get. And then start working P up or down probably till you get P in a place where it seems like it's more behaving. Alrighty, well, hey, you found a tune you're happy with and you think flies nearly perfect. And you're already ahead of quite a lot of pilots there. So, definitely dump this out. Save this dump. Don't lose it, because if you start tuning and tuning and tuning and tuning, you may mess it all up and never get it back again. So save this one, but I do agree with you that the yaw axis needs a little more work, that it could probably fly a little better, and definitely work your motors and your ESCs a little less hard if you clean up that yaw axis. Hope that's helpful. Thank you for submitting. It's good to know what a perfect feeling copter looks like, and frankly, just how sort of messy those traces can be for a copter to still fly good. We all like to see pretty smooth lines, but pretty smooth. When the heart monitor at the hospital goes beep, that's a pretty smooth line too, right? But nobody's going to say that's a good thing. So yeah, we've got to get out there and get some action. Thanks for your submission. Happy flying.